Why does God allow bad things to happen to us? How do we find comfort through God? And prayer, how does it change us? All that and more on today's episode of the Backwood Baptist Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Jason Dunlap. I hope everyone has had a good week so far. It's been a really good week for us here in Hokes Bluff at the Dunlap household, and looking forward to what God has in store for us for the remainder of the week. So let's go ahead and get started today. So why does God allow bad things to happen to us? You know, I remember as a kid, I do something that my mom and dad would say, son, don't do that or you'll get hurt. And of course I say the same thing to my kids all the time, especially my two boys. But I found out real quick after doing exactly what they told me not to do that they were right. If I would have just listened to them, I probably wouldn't have got hurt because I wouldn't have done what they told me not to do. There's several stories in the Bible that are very similar to this, and we'll get to those, but God allows us to go through trials and tribulations so that we can grow. All of us have problems. As a matter of fact, if you're going through a problem right now, you're lucky. And you know why? Well, because think about it. If you've got a problem, then you're a candidate for a miracle. And if you think about all the people in the Bible, when they had issues and stuff like that, there was always a miracle that followed. Most of us know the story about Jonah. God called Jonah to go to Nineveh to preach to the people there because of the wickedness there. But Jonah was so afraid to go there. So what did Jonah do? Well, he tried to hide from God. He tried to run away and hide. Well, we all know that doesn't work. You can't hide from God. God sees all. So, God allowed Jonah to be put in a bad situation. Pretty much teach him a lesson and to teach him to trust in Him. So when Jonah was on the ship, they hit this major storm, and of course all the other people on the ship were casting lots to find out whose fault it was that this storm was happening, and of course it came down to Jonah, and he said, it's my fault. I ran from God. I wasn't doing what He told me to do. Cast me out. So they did. They cast him off the ship or off the boat, and we all know the story. Jonah was swallowed by a big fish, and then that fish took him to Nineveh, which is where God originally wanted him to go anyways. So Jonah didn't obey God. He tried to run from Him, tried to hide from Him, and he was put in that bad situation, and really just to teach him a lesson. I mean, that's what God does, and teaching a lesson is not necessarily a bad thing. When something happens, and my my kids all the time, they do something, I'm gonna teach you a lesson, boy. But it's a good lesson from God. So as Christians, we're not immune to trials and tribulations. And as long as we listen to God, and as long as we keep our eyes on Him, we'll make it. And speaking of keeping your eyes on Him, that's just like back in Matthew 14:22, when Jesus went to pray, and He sent the disciples out and told them to go across the sea, and I'll meet you there. Jesus knew that there would be trouble at sea. He knew that already. And so when there started being trouble, and there was, the waves were crashing on, and Jesus, all the disciples were scared for their lives, and Jesus walked on water out to them, and of course they were scared. They thought it was a spirit, and Jesus said, don't be afraid, it's me. And Peter said, Lord, if it's you, bid me to come to you. So Jesus said, come. And Peter stepped out of the boat. He started walking across the water, and he started looking around at all the wind and the waves crashed down. Well, he started to sink. And Jesus grabbed him and pulled him back up. If he would have just kept his eyes on the Lord, he wouldn't have sank. And that goes true for all of us. We've got to stay focused on God during the storms of our lives so that we could grow through Him. So the answer to the question is, why does God allow bad things to happen to us? Well, the answer is to help us grow and to become closer to Him and better Christians. So how do we find comfort in God? Well, John 14 says, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. And whither I go ye know, and the way you know. Thomas saith unto him, Lord, we know not whither thou goest, and how can we know the way? And Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. See, knowing that I have a place in heaven, and knowing that God loved me so much that He sent His Son to die for my sins, I mean, that's enough for me. But let's dig in a little bit more. So Isaiah 41:10 says, Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Also, in Matthew 5:4, Jesus said to the multitudes, Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And of course, Psalm 23:4 says, Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. See, the Bible has so many instances of comfort, but I only hit 3 of them. You know, in prayer is another way of finding comfort in God. It's actually probably the best way to find comfort in God. You know, you're going to go through so many things in your life and wonder, why me? But God can comfort you. You know, I saw a thing on the internet the other day where there was this famous actress that had breast cancer at one time, and she went into remission, and now she's got stage 4, I think it is. And she said that she asked God, why me? And then she thought about it, and she said, you know what? Why not me? Who am I to say, you know, why can't this be somebody else? She said, I'm thankful that it's me. But that's what we go through from time to time. You know, there's a lot of things in our lives that are going to happen, whether it be the loss of a job, moving, the loss of a loved one. There's so many different things that are going to come our way, and going back to the trials and tribulations that we're going to go through as Christians, that we've got to find that comfort in God. But there's so many scriptures, so many different verses out there that you can look to find that comfort and to help ease that pain. But the easiest answer, pray. Pray that He will give you comfort. Pray that He will give you strength. Pray that He will give you the knowledge to get through it. That is how we find comfort in God. So, prayer. How does it change us? You know, that's a big question that I've gotten from several different people. Is how does prayer actually change us? Well, you see, when we spend time with God, He is working to change our heart to be more like His. the more time we spend with him, the more we're like him. So our habits and lifestyles change. We no longer want to live a self-centered life, but one that is more focused on others, with a pure and sincere heart. So I saw a quote the other day that really hit home to me, and it said, "To be a prayerless Christian is to be a powerless Christian." And that was so profound to me, because it's true. If you consider yourself a Christian, but you don't pray, how do you have the power to overcome these problems in your life? Because you're not calling out to the one that can help you. So prayer is an act of worship. It glorifies God, and it reinforces your need for him. Through living a life of prayer, we respond to Christ's work of salvation, and we communicate with the very source and purpose for our existence. Prayer is a popular focus in sermons and in Christian literature, because if you honestly can't be a Christian if you don't pray. Now, when I say that you can't be a Christian if you don't pray, I don't mean that, hey, if you don't pray out loud at church, or if you don't pray out loud at a restaurant. I mean, if you don't get down and sincerely pray to God. Because like I said, I don't understand. I have no idea how you can even overcome the obstacles in your life if you don't do that. See, we as Christians, we turn to prayer because it's the most personal way to experience God, to encounter him, and to grow in knowledge of him. Ephesians 6:18 says, "Praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints." See, without prayer, God's armor is inadequate to achieve any victory. Prayer is indispensable. And that verse always means on every occasion. So every time anything goes on, whether it be a change in your career, whether it be you got a new car, you got a new house, a loss of a loved one, the loss of an animal, anything that brings you any type of grief, any type of satisfaction, that deserves prayer, because it's God. For the satisfaction, you need to thank God for that. You need to thank God for all your blessings. I said in episode 1, that I thank God every single day for the blessings in my life, and there's way too many to even sound off. But also getting down and praying for help, for forgiveness. Because, hey, you know what? I'm a very devout Christian, but I slip up. I still sin. I'm human. I'm still flesh. So I still have to pray. I still have to pray for forgiveness. But we are called to pray not just for ourselves, but for everyone. Spiritual combat, it's both an individual and a corporate matter. James 4:8 says, "Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you." The more we pray, the closer we are to God. And that is how prayer changes us. Because I'll be honest with you, if you're a Christian and you don't pray, you're not close to God. You can't be. And if you disagree with me, please explain. Because that prayer is the key to communicating with God. I don't know of any other form of communication. Worshiping and song, that is your giving praise to God. But as far as communicating and talking with God on a personal level, getting down on your knees, whether it be in your war room, whether it be in your living room, whether it be driving down the road, because there's a whole lot of days when I'm at work, because I do a whole lot of driving at work, that I'll be driving down the road listening to some music or listening to another podcast or whatever, and it'll just hit me, and I'll turn the music off or whatever, I'll turn the radio down, and I'll just start praying driving down the road. And I know people think I'm crazy. Of course, I don't close my eyes because I'm driving, but I just have to thank God for everything, or I may need to ask Him to help me with something. I had to do the same thing today. Me and my pastor spoke for a little over an hour and a half today, and we were talking about different things, and one of the things I told him about was, I just had to stop. I went to town this morning, and on my way back, I had to stop. I pulled over on the side of the road, and I just prayed. Sat there and prayed for about 5 minutes. And it's amazing the change that it gave me, because I used to not be that way. I used to not pray constantly. When we'd go to church, I'd pray during altar call. I would pray, over meals, and that was pretty much it. I didn't pray outside of that. I would say a quick prayer at night before I went to bed. Hey God, it's me again. Just wanted to ask you to take care of my wife and kids tonight. But now I really get into it. And I'm not one of those that likes to pray out loud either. But you don't have to do that. You can pray in silence. That's perfectly fine. As long as what you're praying is true, and you truly mean what you're sending up to God, because it's just talking to Him, just like I'm talking to you now. Prayer is the best way to communicate with God. So, speaking of prayer, one of the things that I want to start doing, I've got this Facebook page now. We're also on Spotify, which is fantastic. I want to start taking some prayer requests. Something I want to start doing. So, if you want to shoot me a message, you got a prayer request, no matter what it is, if it's an unspoken, if it's personal, you don't have to give me details. Hey Jason, this is so and so. If you don't mind, shoot up a quick prayer for me. I got some things going on in my life and just need some prayers. That's perfectly fine. If you want to get specific, hey, I'm good with that too. Unspokens are always welcome as well. So if you've got any prayer requests, shoot them over to me in a message, comment on this video as well. Listen, I want to tell each and every one of you, thank you again for listening. For the ones that have liked the page and shared it, it means the world to me. This is what I feel like God has called me to do. I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. There's going to be times where I may misquote something. Please feel free to send out a message to me and say, hey, look, this is what you said, or whatever. I'm always up for feedback. I got some feedback on one of my other episodes as well, and I love it. I don't get I don't get butt hurt over it, I promise. So make sure you like, you comment, share, subscribe now that we're on Spotify. We're working to get on Apple Music as well, and other podcast feeds as well. So I hope everyone has a blessed week, and I hope you're able to come back again Friday for the next episode of the Backwood Baptist Podcast.